Hello, everybody. Sorry for this sudden change because I cannot make two live sections in person or remotely, probably. So therefore, I'm just pre-recording this section for you so you can view at your own convenience. Again, I apologize for not being there today. But nonetheless, let's get into what our section is about today. We will talk about both the executive summary. I'm going to give you some general feedback as well as on how we expect you to do the data analysis for your final paper. So without further ado, first, let's talk about the what's it called? The executive summary, because every group got 100%. Yay! So as some of you may already know, we're not really grading this on like how well you do or how like excellent your ideas are. We're just checking if you have started on the project, if you guys have gotten together and start thinking about it. So if you have and you're turning something 100%, yay. With that said, that of course does not guarantee you to have a perfect score on the final, because the final product will be evaluated upon your merit, upon the content, upon how well you organize your arguments, as well as like how well you write it, all that kind of stuff. You have the rubric, so you can check that for what do we actually expect you to do on the final product. So one thing I noticed for the executive summary, most of the groups did very well. We keep the background generally short and relevant. No more than perhaps 4 or 5 lines should be devoted to explaining the background or what led up to this. You don't want to give like half a page of what led up to this. You only have 1 page, right? 1 page, double spaced. So therefore, just keep it short, keep it succinct, keep it like essentially to me, it's more like a hook or something that just starts the conversation rather than a conversation itself. So keep it short, keep it relevant. The second thing I noticed that worth mentioning is that still there are some groups that kind of just have one good point, one good option, while the other 2 options are kind of like throwaway ones, kind of easy to refute or easy to see that's definitely not going to work. So therefore, we really just proposing one option. So the thing I want to mention is that for a white paper, all 3 options, or 4 if you have 4, should be viable. All of them should be something that's well thought out, well proposed. But out of those 3, there is one that stands out to you that you think is the best. It is not uncommon for white papers to be submitted to the governments or to the companies, and then the executives actually choose that's one that's a alternative by the writers of the white paper, but to the president or to whoever is running the show, they decided, you know, one of the alternatives is actually better because maybe they have other informations that we may not have. So that's why all 3 options you're proposing should be viable and not just one of them. Don't worry, I paused it, so if you want to talk. Okay. Yeah. Okay, sounds good. Okay. All right, cool. 已经给他们发过一封邮件了，一会儿再。Thank you. Okay, so sorry for if something seems weird or off because the pause, because I have to pause the video since the nurse came in the room. I'm actually in the delivery room. My wife is right there. So yeah, if nurse comes in or if my wife needs something, I will pause the video and resume recording later. So sorry about any sort of weird pauses or screens jumping around. Okay, let's continue. So yeah, all three options needs to be viable. And the next point I want to make is that you need to know what is already being done, especially if your proposal is with regard to like sanctions, because there are a lot of sanctions that's being done already. If you're saying that our proposal is centered around we should ban Russian oil, which is definitely an option, but that's an option already being implemented. So your proposal doesn't bring anything new to the table and makes it rather uninteresting to policymakers. So you want to make sure you know what is already being done, and then maybe emphasis on like what else you want to do. And we will actually circle back to that point a little bit later today. So that's that. And one last thing, this is more of a logistic. Please do respect the word limit. When we say executive summary should be 1 page, we mean it. And I've actually received some group papers that's like single space 2 pages, and that's that's like 4 times the amount of words you're allowed. So please do trim it down, make it short, make it fit in double space 1 page. Okay, so that's that. All right. With that said, this is just general feedback for everybody, for every group. Individual feedback for your group is already done. I've graded them and yeah, I've actually given individual feedback in Brewing Learn like last weekend. It's in there in the system, but the release date on that will be on Friday. So will be released for everybody in class, my sections and the Nayeli sections as well. So that will be on Friday. So look forward to that. And if you need to talk about it, and if you're unsure what my comments mean, or just want me to point you in a specific direction, or if I specifically say that I worry about your group, then you might want to talk to me in office hour. Okay. Why is it doing that? All right, moving on. So let's talk about how we expect you to do data analysis. There is a lot of data out there actually regarding this issue and regarding something that's more general about Russia or about the world at large. So here are some useful websites. Obviously, I will upload my slides later to Boolean Learn so you can access to these websites yourself and check them out. But I want to show you like how I would approach this and how we can do some manipulations around, not manipulation, how do we utilize those data? So first of all, let's perhaps say, where's my web? Okay, so one thing you might want to just do is just Google search, like this is the data I want on this issue. Because for example, I want to say how many people have died in the Russian-Ukraine conflict. Then chances are you do a Google search, some newspaper will cite a database, then you can go to that database and try to pull out those data. That's one thing. And among the websites that I linked together, there is one that's like this. It's called Statista, and it has actually neatly like put together quite a few different statistics about the Russian conflict with Ukraine. Unfortunately, to utilize it, you need to register for a account, but the base version is free. I actually registered it and used the base version. I don't pay for it either, but it gives you access to a lot of things. For example, if I'm interested in, let's say, the number of civilian casualties during war in Ukraine, I believe I opened that somewhere here or not. Yeah, I think I, well, let me just open it then. Okay, here they give you like number of civilian casualties with a very simple graph. And the cool thing about this is you can use it directly if it fits your need, although I wouldn't recommend it because I would actually take one step further to try to get the raw data. One second. Okay, all right, so if you use a account, register with them, you can actually see on the right-hand side, they do allow you to download the PDF, download the Excel file for the raw data, or just show source information. And this one, they tell us that it is from OHCHR, right? This is from this website or from this organization, and you can look into that. And in fact, you should. And for example, I tried to look it up, and I think it's yeah, this one. This is the OHCHR, and then I found out that's actually the UN organization, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, and so that gives more credibility to the data you find, such as the deaths of civilians, and you can see they give you actually a lot more. So you can put these data together yourself. You can break down like the makeup of these. For example, you're interested in how many men versus how many women are killed, how many girls, how many boys, and you can make a nice looking pie chart using these data here, right? So I would say this website that I linked first is just like a starting point. And you can dive a little bit more into what they have. For example, another one I pulled out is like, oh, maybe I'm interested in military spending in Russia. For whatever reason, I'm interested in that. And this gives me that. But it also tells me it's getting the data from this organization. And luckily, they gives me a source link. I open that up and I realized this is a pretty cool data bank that they have. And that allows me to choose the country or choose the variables I'm interested in. In this case, I'm interested in Russia only, and perhaps I'm interested in comparison between Russia and some other countries, and maybe I can choose some of the other countries, put it in there as well. And then down here, it will generate kind of like what I want, right? So for example, I'm interested perhaps the Russia's spending in terms of current USD dollars for these years. They give me that. Maybe I'm more interested in share of GDP give me that as well. So a lot of these websites will give you something like that. Or if I'm only interested in a couple of years, I can use this slide to do that. A lot of these data websites will have an interface for you to kind of manipulate and see what you have, what you want, right? Yeah. Okay, another example could be that, say, I'm interested in estimate long-term change in annual gross domestic product, GDP, due to trade restrictions. Yeah, something like this. And that might be interesting because I'm looking at sanctions, and it tells me it's from this website. And I go there, I see, okay, what is this? This is the Institute for the World Economy. Well, maybe it's a reputable source, right? More so than this Statista website, because I think they just pull a bunch of things together, but they don't produce data. So you might want to check where the data is coming from. And here they give you basically this chart, and you can see Russia, they marked it red because they're the most impacted. And of course, sometimes these websites will give you more of a raw data format, which this one don't, unfortunately. I wish they would, but maybe I just didn't find the place. So you need to take time, dive into it, and perhaps you can dig up some treasure that way. And of course, we have others. For example, here we would have the WTO website that will have more authoritative data on trade. We already talked about the High Commissioner for Refugees, and World Bank is another one if you're interested in the economic side of things. So for example, if I go into the WTO, they have this page, Russia-Ukraine conflict puts fragile global trade recovery at risk. And then down here, they have many different graphics or data tables that you may want to utilize. Okay, so that's WTO, and WTO have more raw databases as well. The next one is perhaps CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations. They also have quite a few data or different statistics about the ongoing conflict. And you might want to look into this as well. But again, there's no like one stop for everything. So you want to browse many different things. For example, here, this is, what is this again? This is the UNHCR again. Okay, I think I had a World Bank somewhere. Yeah, so this is the World Bank data. And here I will use this as an example to show you how I would perhaps not just grab visualization from these providers that they already have it. For example, this interface, I can manipulate a lot of things in this actually. So for example, this one is GDP, current US dollars with Russian Federation, United States, China, Germany, and Italy. How did I do that? I basically added a bunch of keywords that I wanted here. So on top of here, I could change other things. For example, maybe I'm interested in GDP per capita. We have it, yep. Let's say I want to see GDP per capita in PPP terms. You don't necessarily need to know what they are. And then, okay, so maybe I'm interested in Russia, right? So Russian Federation, okay, that's Russia. And maybe let me check the United States as a comparison. They have that as well, China. Right, so these are the things I found. And if you remember earlier, I did the United States, Russia, China, and I think Italy and Germany. And let's see if I can go back to that. Yeah, this one. So to me, it seems like, okay, Russia, even though it's fighting a huge war, but its GDP is actually lower than that of, like, it's only a fraction of the United States, and much lower than China as well. It doesn't compare to, it's quite lower than Germany. It's not even beating Italy, which is considered like a relatively weak economy in the EU zone, right? So then how come it's still initiating such conflicts? So that might be a puzzle, or might be some interesting points you want to point out there. And what if I want to play more with this data set? And in this data set, actually, it kind of sucks because the labels that they put here actually blocked the line for Italy. So I can't really see where they compare. And seemingly, I have no way of manipulating that. So perhaps I should download raw data myself, which I did. I downloaded the CSV, and this is what I have. Okay, and it looks like they don't actually filter the original data file. They actually gave me every single account or country that they have GDP data on from 1960 and onwards. See here, I have Aruba, I have Albania, ordered in alphabetical order. And obviously then I have some data cleaning I have to do, right? Because I don't want the 1960 data, and I don't want most of these countries. But of course, if you're interested in doing something fun, maybe you want to say, okay, what is the world average? Maybe I can compare that to Russia's GDP, right? Then in that case, you want to perhaps just get a line, calculate the average for every country, and then use that to compare. Or alternatively, like I was doing earlier, I just wanted to do a couple countries. Let's say I want to do China, Germany, United States, Russia, and United Kingdom. Then therefore, I basically deleted all the columns that I don't want. I also deleted the indicators and whatnot in these headers. I also deleted all the lines that I don't want for the countries that I don't want. So therefore, I end up having just this data, some data for these 5 countries from 2007 to 2020. Okay, and then how do I get the graphics? One easy thing to do, if you have a pretty well organized, let's say data entry, you have like row names for different countries, you have years for different years, then, or you can, in this, you can just go here and go to insert, recommended chart. And all I did is just do this chart, right? That's exactly what this one is. And then you can change the chart title to whatever you want. You can edit the axes, you can change a lot of things. There's a lot of manipulations you can do. Go nuts with it. And then, how did I get the second one? So perhaps I want a comparison, but that actually shrinks the Russian one too much. Like it will be good if I want to compare Russia's economy to other economies, but if I want to see the trend of Russia itself, may not be good. So I just want to take out Russia by itself. So what I did is actually just take this like overall chart. I just chose this and deleted a whole bunch of them, just except the Russian one, right? Alternatively, you could go to like the data selection and just choose this one single line. As you can see here, that's the only line of data that's being highlighted. That will provide you the same result here. And from this graph, you can see that in 2014, 2013, 2014 is really where Russia take a hit. That's like the first wave of sanctions after Ukraine. And you can imagine with even harsher sanctions this year, it's probably going to drop a little more, right? So that's ways you can generate graphics yourself, for sure, right? Another thing is perhaps you can do even something more fun with the data. What are these data I pulled out? These are the GDP value for each country for each year. But what if I'm not interested in just the raw value? I'm interested in like the increase year by year. How do I do that? Well, I can manipulate the data myself, right? So again, on top, this is the exact same data I just copied from before. Just copied this entire thing there. And once I copied there, what I did here is I tried to recreate a table, but I took out the 2007 because if I do annual increase, what I want is take this cell, I input equals, and then parentheses, this cell minus, let me redo that. I'm going to say this cell, I want it to be equal to that one, the value in 2008, minus this one, the value in 2007. And I want to put a parentheses on that. And I want to find the difference, the increase, and divide that by the value in 2007. And that's how I find percentage increase, right? Basic math. And therefore, it gives me this value. And originally, it didn't give me this value. I actually had to go to select them, go to format, format cells, go to percentages, and I want 2 decimal places for percentages. And that's how I change. Otherwise, if I do general, they were just gonna give me decimals, which doesn't look good. So I changed it to percentage. Yeah, so there's a lot of things you can play around with Excel. Excel is a very, very powerful tool. So I highly recommend take some chance, play around with it, see what you can do with it. And for this one, you can clearly see like Russia actually had pretty good growth in 2008, 2010, 2011, and 2009. That's probably because of the financial crisis of 2008. And then but clearly in 2014 and 15, it's huge downward. It's even more severe than the economic crisis in the 2009, and then it started doing better slowly, and then in 2020 it started going down again, and then perhaps that shows us how sanctions have huge impacts on Russian economy previously. So that's that. Okay, so you can do some fun things with raw data if you know how to manipulate them. And one thing I want to mention is that Google Sheets can do much of the same, but the Google tools, Google Doc, Sheets, Slides, they are basically inferior copies of Microsoft Office. So try to learn to use Office. They're more powerful. They're more professional in a way than Google utilities. But Google utilities are much better at being shared between people. So each one has its use. On the other hand, I also want to let you know, because a lot of people don't know that if you are a UCLA student, just do a quick Google search, let's say UCLA Microsoft Office download or something along those lines. The first thing that pop up is this website. And if you go in there, it actually, UCLA provides all of you, I believe, a full version of the Microsoft Office suite, because Microsoft is actually a paid service. Google is free. Microsoft Office, because it's powerful, it's not free. But since you're a UCLA student, you should have access to it. So this website can guide you how to register account using your UCLA email, essentially, and then have free access to Microsoft Office. So do that if you haven't. Yeah, so that's that. That's it about the data analysis stuff. Hopefully that's helpful. And lastly, I want to mention something about the sanctions. So the professor has already talked about sanctions in his lecture, so I'm not going to repeat too much, but make sure you understand like how sanctions are applied and how effective they are or ineffective they are. What makes enforcement really hard? What makes the collective action problem really hard, and how does that relate to this problem in Russia? Because many of you have mentioned sanction as one of the proposals, so you need to understand it. Do refer to the things in lecture, as well as one key thing is think about what sanctions are already in place. It should be okay. Okay, and then what more could be sanctioned? And perhaps you don't want to, perhaps your idea is not about like what are other things I can sanction, but what about like how exactly we're going to make the current sanction work better. For example, if we see the current sanction not working because China is kind of like a backdoor exit for Russia, maybe you want to propose something to deal with that. How do we incentivize or how do we coerce China to do what we want them to do, to cooperate with the other sanctions that's going against Russia, right? Something like that. Or you want to say like the current sanctions is targeting too few people, or the current sanctions is not implemented very well, or you say it's not implemented like long enough or something like that, right? But think about the how you want to do that rather than just what. Okay.
I never got your tray yet. Oh my God, I just told them.
Oh, no, yeah, not yet. It's okay, it's all right.
Do you want to try going? Because they're not answering the phone, so it's just message. But I would hate for you to miss breakfast.
Sure, yeah.
There's cafeteria downstairs if you wanted to try getting something there.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
Because the only thing we have here in the pantry is like crackers or like sandwiches at breakfast. So
yeah.
I don't know if you want to wait or.
Yeah, take it.
I'll just bring
yeah, thank you.
In case they don't bring it, because
Right.
I would hate for you to not have it to eat, okay?
Thank you, yeah.
Okay.
No problem, thank you. Okay, let me resume. So one last thing is like, how do I find out what sanctions are already in place? Well, just do a Google do a Google search, right? Because this is in the news. This is very fresh, so we want to check every now and then what is being done, right? So just say current sanctions on Russia and ignore the ads because I don't think ads will be that helpful. Or perhaps looking at like these couple of things. This is actually from the White House. So if you are interested in what US is doing, what sanctions we have implemented already, it provides a pretty comprehensive view. I mean, of course, this is the government like website, so it should be the most authoritative in this regard. So yeah, it tells you what we are doing already. And then, yeah, so if you're interested in that, find out from the White House directly. Alternatively, the second one they gave me is from Reuters, which is a respected media source tracking all the sanctions against Russia. This one is maybe a little bit harder to navigate because it just gives you a timeline. So it doesn't organize it by country or by region, which can be a little bit hard. But nonetheless, it gives you a list of things so you can take a look at who did what and who did what. Maybe notice like a pattern, or perhaps notice who's missing from the people who are doing the sanctions. And another website I found is this one. This is from BBC News. And this one does a pretty good job in explaining what are the sanctions, not just from the US, but from all the other EU countries and around the globe, who's doing sanctions, what kind of sanctions towards Russia and all that. And one thing I want you to notice that even though in the lecture, we focus on sort of the government side of things and how governments are sanctioning the economy of Russia, it's not limited to just companies, as we know, like McDonald's, Coca-Cola, they are sanctioning Russia on their own as well. So international conglomerations, companies, they are major players in this situation as well. So don't limit yourself to just the governments if you do not want to. So, all right, so that's that for today's section. Once again, I apologize for not being able to be there for you guys, but hopefully it gets you useful hints about how to think about the white paper, how to think about the sanctions in place, and hope to see you guys next week. And bye.